just want to reintroduce the fabulous Donata Schoeller from Zurich, Switzerland. She presented yesterday. I thought she hit it out of the park yesterday. That's a baseball expression. I don't know if they use it in Zurich. That means you done good. So for those of you who don't know Donata, didn't hear this yesterday, she received her habilitazione, am I saying it well? Which is the highest university qualification in Europe. She received that at the University of Koblenz. Her doctoral dissertation at the University of Zurich was entitled Humility. She worked closely with Jean Gendlin over many years and has a deep understanding of the philosophy of the implicit. She recently translated Gendlin's book, A Process Model, with Christiane Geiser into German. And I hear rumors that it's better than the English, so learn German and read it in German if you don't know it already. And with Dr. Ed Casey, she and he edited a collection of Jean's essays that's published in a book called Saying What We Mean. And Ed Casey worked to get Jean's book, A Process Model, published by a university press, which is wonderful. Donata also recently won the Ranis Grant of the Icelandic Center for Research for Embodied Critical Thinking. How cool is that? And she has taught at such universities as DePaul University in Chicago, the University of Chicago, and Columbia University. And she's a member of our International Leadership Council at the Institute and also the Gendlin Center for Research. So, Donata.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very sorry that I was a little bit late because of the train. The train didn't come. So today, in some ways, I want to continue with what I tried to convey yesterday, but more on an experiential level, because Gendlin's process model really helped me to get a totally different understanding of the present moment. And with this different understanding, there opens up different wonderful possibilities to practice with the present moment. And one of those practices we call focusing. And I've read the process model with a lot of people a long time, and then I translated it with Christiane Geiser for a long time, again and again and again. And Eugene Gendlin said, "Oh, it's good now," but we kind of started over and over again, and then an understanding grew like an environment, which helped me to use this book in different ways. And I realize now that it's really a practice book. And if you understand it as a practice book, it really is, it's very exciting and becomes a lot of fun. And I don't, after I recognize that, and I give workshops in Europe, with, working ourselves into the process model with experiential exercises. I just don't want to read philosophy books in any other way anymore. I just find it really boring to intellectually think what would have that meant and what else. Just really boring. So I want to do 3 such exercises with you this morning. I've never worked with such a big group. It could be a total catastrophe. It could just totally not work, yes? But believe me, if you would be a smaller group, I'm sure it would work. And the way we do it is very simple. 3 steps. First, we read together some paragraphs. They're on your handout. Then we speak a little bit, because speaking just helps to process on some level. We kind of practice a little bit, how he uses these terms, and then I give you an exercise. Then we come back, we share, then we read, we speak, we exercise, we share. And I hope we have time to do that 1/3 time. And the point is, I want to introduce you to those very, very basic concepts on his first page, which open up a different world of thinking, different possibilities of thinking, to then with these concepts come to the now and see how do these concepts already work, those concepts on the very first page, to give us a different understanding of the vast, grown environment which we call a present moment. But before we enter, I think we should make a small pause. It's so wonderful that we are a focusing community and that we have the pause. So let's do a pause, and maybe you want to just feel the way you are here in the room. Maybe you want to notice all the different ways you experience this room. And maybe you also want to notice how you experience this space in this room. And where are its limits? And then I want to slowly ask you to come back. And open your eyes in your own time and maybe move a little bit and make yourself comfortable. Okay, so you all have handouts? Yeah. So if those who don't have, maybe you can share while they are. Do you have access to somebody who has a handout? So Eugene Gendlin starts with 3 environments, and he introduces them in the very first pages of a process model. And I want you to let's just begin with environment number 1, and then read, and then make a small pause and talk about it, and we read environment number 2, and then we make an exercise. And who wants to read? Yes, do you want to read? You read the first paragraph?
N number 1 is the spectator's environment, what spectators define in their N, which may affect an organism. For example, it is in N number 1 when scientists or hunters define the environment of an animal. They define the N factors. They do it in their own terms. Some monkeys live in trees, others on the ground. The spectator defines these N factors as their, separately from the animal. The spectator may also note something, pollution for example, that is about to affect the animal while the animal does not yet notice. The spectator's bodies interact with the animal's environment, their own environment attributed to another living body.
So we can ignore everything that seems complicated. We can just kind of try to understand what kind of does this notion of environment seem familiar to you? Is this something you know? Yes, yes, yes. This is kind of very familiar. How we live and how we see, and this is the way, you know. Also a scientific understanding that the more we keep out of the picture, the more objective it gets. There is the environment, here is the observer, and we are trained hard to kind of get ourselves out of the picture that it's objective. Subjectivity ruins everything. Yeah. So yes, that's why it's difficult to bring focusing into. Yes. So, but it's a hard discipline. There's also nice somewhere Gendlin says that we don't even notice how hard it is, yeah, to stay in that mode all the time. There's so much implicit if we try to be the observer. Yeah. And there's a famous book by an American philosopher, came out in the 80s, which is called The View from Nowhere. The View from Nowhere. That's really how science tries to understand the world, as if there is a world absolutely independent of how it is looked at, and we try to look at it as if we disappear, as if the person who looks disappears. We don't notice what we do by looking. Yesterday, Harville beautifully said that, of course, that in the quantum theory changed. But so environment number one is a very common notion. So now let's read. Let's continue to read. Who would like to read? Yes.
N number 2 is identical with the organism's living process. Body and N are one event, one process. For example, it is air coming into lungs and blood cells. We can view this event as air coming in, or as a coming into lungs and body cells. Either way, it is one event, viewed as N or as body. Here we are not calling it environment, because it is all around. Here we are not calling it environment because it is all around, but because it participates within the life process. And body is not just the lungs, but the lungs expanding. Air coming in and lungs expanding cannot be separate. The point is that we need not split between the lungs and air. Take another example, walking. The same pressure, which is the foot's on the ground, is also the ground's pressure on the foot. We can separate ground from foot, but not ground's resistance from foot's pressure. The N number 2 is not the separable environment, but the environment participating in a living process. The N number 2 is not the ground, but the ground participating in walking, its resistance. The behavior cannot be separate from this ground participating. If the body is hanging in air and attempts to walk, its swing will be much wider and it will not move forward. It won't be walking. In deep water, walking will immediately be thrashing. The motions will be different. The body cannot enact the same behavior without the ground. And the ground cannot be ground pressure. It cannot be this N number 2 without the behavior. Without walking, there is still a ground in the sense of N number 1, but not as N number 2. The N number 2 is a function of ongoing living and exists only in that living.
So beautifully read. I really think that, if you read the process model beautifully, it's, again, much easier to understand than if you just read it silently. So what do you notice immediately? What is different with this environment, this concept, this notion of environment? Yes. Pardon? Yeah. So there's no more outside possible. It's not the air out there, but you realize, if you get an understanding of environment number 2, you realize that we hardly ever experience air out there and lungs separated. But how we constantly experience is this interaction, is the breathing, is the pressure of our bodies on the chair, is the touching of our foot on the ground. So there was a moment when I realized it's so strange. He starts with environment 1 and then comes 2, and you think it's a kind of continuation. But really, it's a huge break. Between environment 1 and environment 2 is a huge break. And the process model starts with environment 2. And environment 1 is uninteresting for Gendlin, maybe until 200 pages later, where he can slowly elaborate how much abstraction capacities human beings must acquire to conceive of such environment, of such a concept of environment. And really, yesterday, it helped me so much, also the way, discussions after my paper, to realize that N2 is really a direct reference notion. Because there's no meaning in the word as such. He's pointing to something. He's pointing to realize you're breathing. You can only have the meaning of this concept if you live. You can only have the meaning of this concept if you refer to your ongoing experiencing. So it's a very humble notion. It just points. It's filled by your experiencing body, which you can never put into a concept. Yes? It's the ongoing living. But Jean he tries to make a concept out of it from here with him. From here. And it's no name. He doesn't analyze it. He doesn't explain it. It's N2. It's a this. It's a this. And we need to engage in our living. We need to experience to fill this with meaning. We know how it is to breathe. If we wouldn't know how it is to breathe, we wouldn't be able to use N2. So I thought that was for me really a new insight. It's a direct reference concept. Yes. So N2, you said N2 is something you only get from your own living process. Yeah, and sometimes it's annoying. People say, why does he use this strange N2, N3? But it makes more sense to me after I deepen my understanding to direct reference. But, in direct reference, we just say, it's this, and we have to experience it. And with N2, he opens up a way of speaking from, of thinking into, how we always already interact with environment, how we are this interaction in many, many different ways. Yes?
Tell me what you think of this, but it would seem to me that there is a level of interactivity and not necessarily a level of objectivity in environment one either, because we are defining the environmental factors. So we are defining the terms by which we describe something or evaluate something, right? So
you're totally right. But normally one is not so aware of that in the concept. One hopes to keep outside. Yes. But of course, you're very right. And philosophers, of course, notice that too. But Jean just wants to kind of, he makes crude, new ways of getting into thinking a process. And he says, with N1, he kind of just labels a very common understanding. But what is, when it becomes, the process model starts with N2. So if they're not really urgent understanding questions, I would propose a first exercise. And the exercise goes like this. You would try to, maybe 3-4 minutes, walk around this area as observers. You're observers. Yeah, you're kind of here to make a nice survey of this place. And you can really observe and see what you notice. And then, after that, you shift. And you allow yourself to experience how you experience being in this room. How you experience walking on the floor. How you experience your breathing. How you experience the other people. How you experience... And you shift from being an observer to allowing yourself to notice your living process right now. Is that nice? Does everybody understand? Yeah? And then we come back and share a little bit. Okay? Okay, so now we can shift into N2 by noticing maybe the ground pressure on our feet, by noticing our breathing, by noticing how we experience this space. How we experience the objects in the space and also the people around us. Okay, and then we maybe all come back again to the room. I would just like to, if you would like to share how it was, and if you could sense the difference.
So my sense of it is N1 is really impossible.
Yes.
You know, I mean, from the moment, just simply get up from the chair. You know, you notice an interaction. You know, little things like you want to go somewhere, there's somebody there, you have to make a decision. So the only possible way is if you're disconnected from the experience of it, but doing it is impossible. Yeah, it's a lot of work.
I thought that was really interesting because EN1 created like a felt sense for me. And the people, including you, Donata, who kept smiling at me, were kind of quote-unquote interfering with my sort of distance. And I actually, what was really interesting was I thought, I need this in my life because I'm always feeling the interaction of others. And it was almost like a relief for me to just have that distance. And then, of course, EN2 was more of my natural way of being, but I definitely learned that even though EN1 doesn't exist, there's like a gradation where it could exist for me, and I could use that. So thank you.
Nice. That's a very nice little surprising outcome. Yeah.
So what came to me was that in the first part of the exercise, in environment number 1, I really felt like as I was observing things, but I am still having the interaction with those things, with people and the objects. And in the second part of the exercise, it's like I was with you. It's like, and the first one is that and me. And in the second part of the exercise, it's like me and you. It's like we are all together. It's, I don't know if I am, do you understand me? Okay, thank you.
Are there any other things which then Evelyn, Ram, and just go around?
My first reaction to the observing environment was, oh, this is not too bad. And then I was noticing, oh, yeah, but it is not EN1 because it's my curiosity which is driving me to see things I wasn't seeing before. It was very helpful, but it's also, it's not possible without me because my curiosity was driving me. So.
I thought this would be an easy exercise. But before we did it, I thought, oh great, I can teach this to my students. And then I did it, and it was not easy at all, because first of all, as everyone has noted, it's not easy to separate. So I noticed myself walking and taking mental notes. Oh, it's got 6 columns, it's this. Like, looking, oh, the angle here is a 45 degrees angle. It's like, and I was trying, like, noting, making abstractions of the space and kind of making a mental note of what this space is like. But all the time, as I was doing it, I was noticing that I'm I'm suddenly sensing a hum in the ground, you know, and oh, the sky, the light is coming in. I'm being attracted and moved by how I encounter the environment. And so I'm not just I'm not just seeing something, I'm in it, completely in it. And it's funny, when you said to switch, nothing changed. It was exactly the same. I couldn't feel any difference when I moved to N2. It was again N2, and still I was making mental notes about it and noticing this and noticing that. So they come. I can see how they're both there, but I can't see how one can separate them from the other.
It's really difficult. You're right, and I also noticed how words are important to keep the space of environment one. It's really important to, yeah. So there's I don't know now the order anymore. Yes, so here, just in front of you, Ram.
Thank you. Hi, I'm new to this. So N1 was just sort of me in my usual environment. I'm looking at your pants and the zippers on the sides. And it just was sort of like not being aware also of things, walking around. And then N2 was a lot of work for me. So I tried to be more cognizant of, trying to do the exercise exactly right and, touching and taking things in. So, I have a lot to learn. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. I agree with everything that was said before me, and I'll try to add my experience to the pool of what can happen in such an experience, an experiment. Sorry. When I tried to do N1, the first thing I was aware of was that I was hungry. And it may sound a nothing, but I think it was a very something. Because I think that the process that I went through was within me, not with the environment as we see it in N1, was an attempt to cut some of my parts off. And for me, this is anxiety-provoking in a way that I needed to eat. And I know that, but to experience an experiment that had novelty in it. I don't know how to say it differently. And I asked myself, would that be making the assignment or not? I ate the pear anyway. And I went on my N1 hunt. And then I was in the other room making the attempt not to take in any meaning. I just took in things or objects, but I felt the attempt not to engage in meaning making, which was painful again. And it was all gray, but okay, I don't have other words for that, which again is not the work of a good spectator. Now, and then we changed into the second one, and to me, the real revelation in that was that I became to sense and feel micro environments. I was attracted to this part and appalled by that part. I was attracted to the books and I didn't want. And it didn't exist when I was a spectator in Environment 1. Okay.
Thank you. I just would like to. We must make, maybe in a few minutes we must make a stop. So because I do want to come through, I'm really sorry. Because the sharing part is really part of the process, and it opens up so much. And mostly with those simple exercises and the sharing, we anticipate the process model. We anticipate, and like. What you said is also, I found it so interesting because in those few sentences, you indicated how much work, how much discipline, how much, yes, cutting is implicit in our usual concept of environment out there, yeah, and that it needs, and that is a practice, a practice which helped us cultivate an incredible science, yes, and we are really, and also always emphasize, we are so happy we have this science. Two of my children wouldn't be here without that science. I wouldn't be here without that science. Yes, but it's like we must be aware that it's a practice and that it's not the objective truth. It's a practice to relate in some way to an environment out there, and that environment too is allowing us back our organic sense of life, and now we can work with both. That's always what Jen says. We can work with both. We can think with both. We can work with both. And having concepts for it, we can say, okay, we can now shift from one to the other. We don't say, oh, now we go into the feeling and it's so subjective, and we have all those discussions. We can, and this is the powerful thing about his environment concepts. We can just say, let's shift now to environment 2. What a huge step! And you will see with environment 3, we still have even further possibilities. And it's always, for me, it's just, having worked myself into this philosophy, it's so difficult to bring it into an outer world because of how the language is cut there. Yeah, you have to and you lose everything. So it's really bringing in a different, like Wittgenstein said, a different language game. We can take those words in the world, and it takes 2 or 3 sentences, yes, and people will be intrigued. Oh, environment too, yes. Okay, but who still wanted to? Yes, please.
I was just going to say that when we were doing the Environment 1 practice, I was using a lot of words in my mind. Oh, it's white, grey, beige, pictures over there, and then when we switched to Environment 2, the words kind of fell away, and it was all about feelings in my body.
I know, it's the last word.
Just a very quick thing. So N1, I was doing a survey, and really I was quite interested. So without noticing it, I guess I was very animated by curiosity. Hey, what does this floor contain? But what happened with N2 was I allowed humans in. I suddenly became aware of everyone. Now, during N1 practice, someone greeted me, and I went, that's an error. I should not respond.
Thank you very much. Okay, so if it's okay with you, let's continue. Who wants to read Environment 3? And I would just say when we should pause to talk a little bit. Who would like to continue to read? Yes. Pardon? Yes. Where's the second?
And number 3 is the environment that has been arranged by the body and number 2 process. The body accumulates, is a resulting environment. The mollusk's shell, the spider's web, or the beaver's tree when it falls, these are their main environment, but they are results of the animal's body and number 2 process. Ia number 3 is wider than Ia number 2. We can set up a continuum of greater and lesser seeming separability. The beaver's tree seems quite separable from the beaver. A bird's nest also. A spider's web is separable from the spider, who will live on and make another if we destroy this web. The mollusk's shell isn't as separable, yet we think it's separate. How about our hair? Is it not a product of the body? But our skin too, and the body too. The body of any creature, is the result of its life process. EN number 3 includes the beaver's felled tree, but also the beaver's body. The environment which the process produces is wider, but it includes the body. EN number 3 is another, a different way in which body and environment are one. The body is environment. But since this environment is wider than the body, this equation isn't perfect. How body and EN number 3 imply is more complicated.
Okay, maybe let's make a small pause. These last two sentences, we don't have to get into them now. Let's just try to understand. So I would just like to kind of hear how do you understand this environment number 3? And just, really take the examples. The examples in those first pages of the process model are very helpful and very important. Yeah. So, how does it make sense to you, this environment number 3? Yes, you have a microphone there.
I think that the numbers are just arbitrary, 1, 2, 3. They're not really built on top of each other. They're just 3 different ways to look at things. And N number 3 is that which is relevant for the life process. That which is in the world that is relevant, or where the life process manifests itself and deems as relevant, is N number 3. And anything that's not that, so let's say, I don't know, the beaver's tree is in New York, but, New York doesn't mean anything for the beavers, so it's not part of its world. It's just the tree.
Yeah, but you're already going one step ahead somehow. I think it's important just to be, just to become aware of the very basic thing of environment number 3, but the living process creates its own environment. Our bodies are results of our living process. That's such an intriguing thought. And if you work a little bit with this concept, you realize how many phenomena where you think they have nothing to do with each other, all of a sudden become an environment 3. Yes, and then I would like to experiment I would like to invite you to have to give me further examples of environment 3.
So for me, the concepts are not new, but I did just get some new ideas. So I recently moved into an apartment in August. And before that, I had lived in a small room, and I didn't have any furniture or anything. And now I can look around my apartment and see beauty there and all these colors. And also I've been knitting an Afghan, which fits in well. And I'm like, wow, it's kind of like I've created this environment for me. And I'm creating a garden now. And it's like, these are sort of similar to the things that can come in environment 3. And that's interesting.
So of course our houses, and if we lived a long time in our houses, they are a result, like a shell of our living process. And how we live implies those rooms, and the rooms implies how we live. And that's also why it's sometimes totally difficult to move. And it's difficult to explain why it's so difficult to move, because our whole living process implies this structure which it kind of, co-generated by living. Yeah? Yeah. Yes.
Would one example be what happened when we were reading the definition of N1 and N2, and then what happens after we have the experiential, and it takes on a different meaning?
Yes, that's really lovely, because N3 is such an interesting notion, because it allows us, what we are doing here is we are creating a kind of room of understanding by doing all those things. We read, we speak, and we go on in the room of understanding we create. So environment number 3 allows us to think that living process is so creative on a subtle and on a very structural, like the house is environment number 3. But we can only do what we do because of these rooms. But what we do here is also a subtle environment 3. Understanding is an environment 3. It needs a lot of living process to build a structure, and that's why it's sometimes difficult to change our understanding. Yes? Yes? Yes, and our laws are environment 3, with a lot of interaction and fighting, and that's why and our living implies our laws, implies our culture. And it's very, very difficult to change that. And environment 3 doesn't mean there's no value in it. It just says how creative living process is, and the most basic thing is the body. The body lives and builds itself by living. Yeah.
And then we live in that environment. That's all I want to say, is that we create the environment and then we live in it.
And we imply for our living process deeply this environment.
And I have...
Yes, 2 more and then...
Okay,
yeah.
And what it came to me is like something more.
Yes.
Is the bird, the net, the bird build, and the possibility of the next nest, sorry. You know, it's furthermore, is this and what we can do with this.
And it's the bird's body.
Yes.
So maybe to Gail and then to Glenn.
I actually have a question, and I remember learning this many years ago, and the person who was teaching, what I recall is him saying that at this point in the text, we haven't yet identified who we are or what our we haven't even identified a separate body. So my question is, if I was reading this with someone, my inclination is to not go to even though the concepts are very open, like for me as well as for everyone else, my inclination would not be to go to the body or to our human living because we haven't read there yet.
Yes.
So I'm just a little confused. I've been confused about that for a while.
Yes. Well, I just want to tell you that I methodologically disagree with this. If you read, also Jenden's in the 4th chapter, he says we start from our living bodies and we devise concepts that allow us to think into, why we humans are possible. Yeah. He doesn't put himself away. It just doesn't work otherwise. And that's why you can really take them as robustly and as experientially. He doesn't start from nowhere.
That's really helpful
That's
to me.
so helpful for me too, because I also started like that, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. And it works that way. He started with his own, and I can show you this where he methodology says that we start with our own living bodies, and we conceive concepts that allow us to think into the meaningfulness. And he starts with concepts that allow to think into this more and more, and to think a development, which unfolds the intricacy. But it's not a kind of evolutionary thing that we're not there yet. It wouldn't make sense. As if Gendlin would have thought out of nowhere himself. It just doesn't make sense.
Thank you so much.
So one last question, and then in an experience.
I'm just wondering if this has something to do with the phrase from biospiritual focusing, the issues are in the tissues, and when we, the way that our posture changes and that our musculature and bones and fascia, as a former massage therapist and acupuncturist, I think in this way that, people build structures inside themselves in reaction to things that happen. Is that the right way to think of N3?
It comprises that too. Tova, and then that's the last.
Thank you. I just want two associations. It's a question when I think of environment 3, it's as if everything that occurred up until now is the environment for the next occurrence.
Yeah, you could say it like
both
that.
biologically, historically, mentally, meaning anything. Yes. And so that you think that is right?
I totally agree, and that's exactly the paragraph which we will come to.
Okay.
He will then, apply it to time.
Okay.
He says environment 3.
Okay, and the second association, which is also a question, is more mathematical. Is if I could perceive the environment number 1, it would be a plus. This plus, this plus, this plus, in mathematics. If I see the second one, it's machpelah. Multiplication. And if
but multiplication implies already different units. You don't have that in N2. You have interaction first. You have your experiencing. And that's the difficulty about the concept, that it doesn't work, that we kind of separate it, that we kind of have a model outside of our living body. Our living body fills this concept with meaning.
Then I leave that point.
Yes, okay. This is really the last. So obvious. We build a baby. So we birth worlds. And I'm very happy that you say that, because this now goes to the next exercise. And I want you to read the paragraphs that start with the bloodstream and that end with the track. On this page, there's just the following paragraphs. It starts, the bloodstream is often called, do you see it? And I want you to pair up, and one person reads it to the other person, and the other person goes into a focusing mode, and then just sees what these words do with her or his experiencing of the body. Yes? So we make a kind of focusing to what to these paragraphs. So the one person reads, and the other one just notices, what do the words do to me? What do the words do to my experiencing of my body now? And then we turn around, and the other person reads, and each has 10 minutes. So we're back here in 20 minutes. So we start the bloodstream, and we end with track. Yeah, before the excerpts from chapter 4. Did everybody get that? Yes? Okay. I would like to not share now, but I would like to go on, and then we share both of the exercises, because I wouldn't so much. I was writing that this is an exercise into the present moment as a rich web, and I want to come to this exercise still, and then we can share. I want to just say one thing. I want to just suggest to you, in case you want to repeat this exercise we just did, cut out all the sentences which disturb. Yeah, because I regret a little bit. There were too many sentences in between, and I hope you just focused on what really touched you, what moved you. But if you want to repeat it, just cut out all the sentences which are too much and do it again. Yes? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I would like to continue now. In your free time, you can read the sentences on page number 2 and page number 3, but I really want to continue at the bottom of page number 3 now. And it's possible to do that. And I want to ask who would like to read. Yes. Yes.
Thank you. And how far do you want me to go? Just to the bottom of the page? Okay. We can apply the concepts we've built so far and say that past and present are both occurring now, and the present goes on in the remains
maybe
of the past.
Slow. Very slow reading, please.
All right.
Really slow reading.
All right. We can apply the concepts we have built so far and say that past and present are both occurring now, and the present goes on in the remains of the past, and lives them forward, as we said. Environment number 3 is a kind of past in which the fresh body, environment 2, process goes on. And environment 3 is altered in being lived further by the process. Yes, there is a past that is now, and this past is being altered now. Of course, this is a different past than the dead and gone past, which was recorded on someone's video and functions no longer. For some purposes, we will want to keep the usual notion of that all gone past which happened long ago. But there is also the past which is inherent in any present experience, and which can function in its various ways.
I just want to make a little pause and just one. Is there an understanding of this in the room? Yeah. So let's continue.
What I now do, feel, and think comes out of my body. This may sound odd, but where else does it come from? The mind? To separate mind and body deprives body of certain vitality. To separate mind and body deprives body of certain vitally important characteristics of living tissue. I'm not referring just to the famous mind-body problem on the abstract level. The problem involves a way of thinking, a type of concept which removes implying, and as we will soon see, also meaning and symbolic functions from the body. For us, it is vital not to miss the fact that living bodies imply their next bits of life process.
Yeah. Is there any need for question or comment at this? So, please continue.
Instead, let us think from and speak from how we experience the present with the body, and how the past is in the present, and in the body, indeed, how the body is a kind of past, a past that is now involved in experiencing the present.
I would very much like to repeat this paragraph. Can we read it again?
Sure.
And really
slowly.
Slowly and celebrate it.
Instead, let us think from and speak from how we experience the present with the body, and how the past is in the present and in the body, indeed, how the body is a kind of past, a past that is now involved in experiencing the present.
So we can go on with the next. Maybe somebody else wants to read still? Who would like now to read? Yes.
If you attend to the middle of your body just now, you'll find your intricate, more than defined, body sense of the present, which consists of my words and also a vast amount more. Language is always implicit in human bodies, so that a present body sense always leads to the formation of fresh phrases, if you allow it. Even before those come, you can sense the past that functions in this moment, much of your thinking and reading, more than you could explicitly remember. Your reasons for reading this, what you hope for, your curiosity, excitement, perhaps even disgust at some of what I am saying, but also what else went on today that allowed you the time for this now, what your alternatives were, perhaps what you wanted to avoid, perhaps what you are always good at in philosophy. Also, what has often been hard for you, many past events, bearing not just on this reading, but on what else is going on in your life just now. These are my words. You would first find only a slight seething body quality, often just ease or unease, which can open into your version of all that.
Yes. So, I would, are there any questions or comments? And if not, I would like to propose a next exercise. And the exercise is to take this literally. Yeah, and to take your moment of now as your version of all that, functioning now, all that, and we can now give this a little curiosity, and we can ask ourselves in a focusing kind of way, what is functioning from the past now that I am sitting here? Maybe you want to write that down. And you take this felt sense of now. You don't have to think about it. You take the felt sense of now and just say, what comes? What is functioning of all that? Of a vast past functioning in the present moment. That I am here now. And then you can just gather different strands and just see what comes. Do it playfully, curiously, see where it leads you. Of course, we can. It's a dipping of a dipping of a dipping. We could do this a whole day. We could do this a week. Yeah. And the second little question, after you did it, you ask yourself, and how has this altered my now? Yes? So after you did this kind of focusing, what from the past has functioned, is functioning freshly, that I am sitting here. And then when you just focused and said a little bit, then the very last, and maybe your focusing partner can ask you to sense in and say, and how did this alter your sense of now? Yes? Are there any questions to this exercise? Yeah, that's a good question. Working kind of are implicitly present. Yes, you don't have to, you don't have to, do you do focusing a little bit? Yes, you just have to see what comes up, what seems relevant from my past that I am sitting here, what is working, what was formative, what is kind of, yes. Yeah, functioning is a little bit a mechanistic word, and Jenlin uses it a lot, and if you use it in the way Jenlin does, it loses its mechanistic touch, but you're very right to ask. Okay, good. Okay, so can we do 10 minutes each, and then we come at 11:30, and we share. We do a sharing round. Yes? Okay, so whoever would like to share something from those last two experiences is very invited to do so.
I noticed that there was a sense of constriction. I'm like, oh man, like everything here is informed. The past is working everywhere here. And I'm like, fuck. And there's like, how do I get out? And I was like, oh, I tried to do that before too. I could share more about that, but that's like the brief of it.
Thank you. Please.
You saw me before I knew I won. Implied. Thank you. I want to share about the previous one.
Yes.
And one thing and another about this is that For me, the strongest sentence, and I altered it a little in my felt sense, is that we are enough. And this is so hopeful. That the life process has in it everything it needs. How big event. What a big event. So that's for the previous one. And I felt rejoicing in it. That's why I want to share it.
Thank you.
And this last one, we had the past that one of us recalled was a good one and created possibility. And the past that the other recalled was, like you said, that it was constructing. So we find ourselves going to the future when we wanted to get wider again.
Please?
Golly, walking there made it sort of fuzzy. There's just something limitless. My experience was just limitlessness, and I could find no beginning.
Yeah, so the child part in me that got so shut down, closed off in the dark, is relative to the experiencing of this text or these words, these concepts that give something like a sense of light in here. So my sort of like adult accumulated that always puts the experiencing of something that's enlightening or spiritual or hope-giving, puts it on the outside in that kind of like an EN1 way of living my life from the outside, and it can never get in, really, except like just now, you know, like you're right, something can get in, you know.
My experience doesn't feel nearly so fresh now, taking that in, but I just want to recall it because it felt exciting and new. I initially had a similar experience of noticing the past as like, oh my God, it's everywhere, it's so oppressive. And, but it was really delightful to sit with that and just to keep noticing and to find that I started having pictures of the effect of the past on my body in a way that felt very light, that no longer were overwhelming and oppressive, and that seemed to keep my mind busy in just a light enough way that there was a lot of attention left to notice what was happening in my body in this moment. And it felt like I came to a place of really pleasurable balance where my mind was creating labels based on past experience, just enough to keep myself busy, and that allowed for this big current of presence reaching out and settling down. And I felt like an athlete of awareness, like I'm so ready for this moment and what is happening right now. And I just like hung out there, like, I don't want this to stop. That was wonderful.
Nada, is there a place in the work for this where when I looked at how the past had altered the now, the answer that came was, I'm different. And when that answer came, I said, different from what? And the answer to that was different from what I might have expected to be. So there were two somethings running parallel, what was actually happening, and an expectation I might have thinking. Does that fit in the model somewhere?
Oh, my experience was really as I had a lot of experiences, but as Monica's listener. So what is so interesting to me, and I know this already, but it was so profound, is you can have no idea what somebody is talking about, their content, and have such a deep experience. And that's what that's what we were just experiencing. I don't know what she was discussing, but it was so rich. Beyond that, I was noticing how close EN2 and EN3 are. I was noticing that it was really, from my perspective, that as we were in this interaction, I was going back and forth between the awareness of we're generating, as we're interacting, we're generating. And it was really my awareness that was determining what we were in, even though we were in both. So EN2 and EN3 were like not separable. Only through awareness are they separable, I think.
They're different. How is it now? Now it becomes so evident. There are different grades of separability with EN2 and EN3. That's exactly it. Yes. Yes.
I mean, this question of what's the difference between N2 and N3? She said N3 has to do with time. I thought that immediately helped me. Do you think that's true?
What I still wonder is, did anybody of you do this second part of the exercise, how this exercise, contemplating the now, changed the now? Did somebody do that? Yes?
I had a similar experience to what you were saying, that like distinguishing that the past was kind of habitually determining my perception of what was there, that distinguishing that opened up this space for me to be present to, well, I guess being present to the fact, or being present to the process of that my past was determining my now, opened up an opportunity for my now to be freshly brought in, and there was an opening and a space there. But then once I was there, then I had a similar thing where I was fighting to stay there, and then that opening started closing again.
But it's just so wonderful because it's just so vivid examples of how intricate we are. Yes. How intricate, just different ways of being aware, how the past functionings in constricting opens up a sense, and then all the things that are happening, and then that this is all our bodies doing that, the human bodies. It just becomes very astonishing. Ram, you want to? Oh. And then, yes, we have to wrap up.
Okay. So I was paying mostly attention to my butt sitting on the chair, and I noticed that I cannot separate the sensation of feeling the chair from knowing that it's black and that it's made of plastic and that it has a surface, and that like the feeling was combined and I couldn't separate it. I felt that my conception of the chair was completely intertwined with my experiencing of the chair. And that was a moment, like this kind of waking up moment. And with Pat's permission, I want to read something that I wrote. Is it okay? Yeah? I continue beyond. I feel every limit dissolving. My mind can let go of the edges of me, and only a scent of me that I have wafts.
I would kind of love to take this as a last word. Is that okay? And I want to also end with which comes very freshly to me now, that philosophy in the ancient times started with a feeling of awe, and philosophy kind of lost that feeling. And if you work yourself into this strange technical text, this feeling of awe opens up more and more and more. So I think this is one of the most wonderful things about this philosophy, that it really re-sparks this sense of awe. Yeah. Yes, and I think with this, maybe we stop. Yeah?
Awesome.